Harland Sanders, better known as the Colonel, was born in 1890 in the farming community of Henryville, Indiana, in the United States. From an early age, he faced great hardship. Harland was the eldest of three brothers from a humble family of Irish descent. When he was just 5 years old, his father died, so he was forced to learn to work and cook to help his family. A few years later, when Sanders turned 12, he decided to drop out of school to work full-time on the family farm. At that time, his mother remarried, but her new husband constantly mistreated Harland and his sisters. Tired of his stepfather's treatment, at the age of 13, the young boy ran away to move to his aunt and uncle's home in New Albany. At the age of 15, he worked as a train driver in New Albany. Later, he joined the Army and completed his military service in Cuba. After returning to the United States, he moved to Sheffield, Alabama. There he had all kinds of jobs as a merchant seaman, insurance salesman, railroad fireman, and farmer. Harland Sanders was a man with a very strong character, which would bring him multiple problems in his working life, leading to several fights. After moving unsuccessfully from job to job, he decided to launch himself as an independent businessman. He invested a large part of his money in an interior lighting system based on acetylene gas. But the latest generation electrical grid reached rural areas earlier than expected, so the business failed. By the late 1920s, Sanders and his family moved to Kentucky. There he began working as a salesman for Michelin Tire Company, but soon after, an opportunity presented itself to manage a Standard Oil service station near Nicholasville. Unfortunately, a severe drought that hit the region at the time and the Wall Street crash of 1929 negatively affected the demand for gasoline, making Harland's business unsustainable. In 1930, he received an attractive proposal from the Shell Oil Company. The company planned to build a new service station in Corbin, Kentucky, at the junction of U.S. Route 25 running north and south. Shell Oil executives knew Sanders was a natural salesman and wanted him to be in charge of running the new station, so they offered to let him manage it in exchange for a percentage of sales. In addition, Shell would add an apartment for Sanders to live in with his family, rent-free. He accepted the deal, and this would be the starting point of Harland Sanders' real business. Harland, now 40 years old, started operating the Shell Oil service station and soon realized that he could earn some extra money doing one of the things he enjoyed most: cooking. Since he didn't have a restaurant as such, he and his wife would prepare the food in the kitchen of their apartment and then put it on the dining room table for customers, mostly truckers, to come in and buy whatever they wanted. The concept was a complete success from the start, so he decided to reopen the business as Sanders Service Station. Thanks to the quality of the food he prepared, the service station became very popular in the area. Sanders' popularity as a cook reached such a point that in 1935, the governor of Kentucky named him Kentucky Colonel in recognition of his contribution to the state's cuisine. This would undoubtedly be one of the most important moments in the life of this entrepreneur. As a curious fact, in the beginning, Sanders refused to include chicken in the menu of the meals he offered because he said it took too much time to cook it the way he would like it. Business grew, and about a year later, he opened a larger restaurant across the street. It was then that he decided to add fried chicken to his menu, which he prepared in a pan from a recipe of his own with 11 herbs and spices that he patented in 1940. This is where the world's largest fried chicken empire was born. In fact, today, this location is called the Harland Sanders Cafe and serves as a museum for visitors to learn about the company's history. Fried chicken became the star product of the Colonel's restaurant. But the big boost to the business came thanks to food critic Duncan Hines, who included it in his restaurant guide. Lots of customers came looking for a taste of the delicious dishes prepared by the famous Kentucky Colonel. It seemed that life was finally smiling on Harland, but an unfortunate event put an end to what he had achieved up to that point. In the early 1950s, Interstate 75 was built parallel to Route 25, but several miles to the west. This caused traffic passing through the Colonel's restaurant to be redirected, reducing his sales considerably. The business began to take losses and high debts, so he ended up selling it for just under $75,000. After paying off his debts, his income was reduced to a $105 monthly pension from the government. At 62 years old and broke, anyone would think of giving up. But Harland Sanders was willing to try one more time. He decided to take advantage of the fame he had built up and embarked on a new adventure. Confident in the quality of his chicken recipe and armed with incredible determination, he traveled the country by car, cooking his product from restaurant to restaurant for both owners and employees to try. If the reaction was favorable, he would cut a deal in which he would give up his recipe and teach his preparation technique in exchange for 4 cents per chicken sold. The job was not easy. He had to drive miles and miles and cook a lot of chicken at every restaurant he visited. He slept in his car and accepted every side meal offered to him to save on expenses. After knocking on the doors of hundreds of restaurants, he got a lot of no answers. He finally landed his first franchise with a Salt Lake City man named Pete Harmon. After adding Kentucky Fried Chicken to his restaurant's menu, Pete's sales tripled. So did the sales of the other early franchisees who had agreed to the Sanders deal. Motivated by the sales success he was having, he continued to travel the country, reaching out to more restaurants. By 1964, at the age of 74, Colonel Sanders had 600 locations with his product in the United States and Canada. At that time, the business was still a family business. Harland handled sales and paperwork, and Claudia, his second wife, mixed the secret spices and then shipped them to franchisees. However, rapid growth made the process of running the business increasingly complicated. He finally decided to sell most of his shares to an investment group in the state for $2 million. In addition, he agreed to stay on as the company's spokesperson for a lifetime salary of $40,000 a year. This salary soon rose to $75,000, equivalent to more than $500,000 today. With the investment group in charge, business grew at an accelerated pace. By 1970, Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises had grown to more than 2,700, and Colonel Sanders' image was becoming an icon around the world. Kentucky Fried Chicken had become one of the largest food business empires in the world. Its franchises continued to expand steadily from country to country until they reached all 5 continents. In 1986, the PepsiCo Food Group bought Kentucky Fried Chicken for $840 million and decided to change the brand name to KFC, keeping only the acronym in its advertising and corporate image. Currently, KFC has more than 26,000 establishments in 146 countries, and its sales exceed $31 billion a year. It is considered one of the most valuable brands in the world. Colonel Sanders died in 1980 at the age of 90, but left a legacy that would transcend for decades. His face continues to be the image of KFC and became a legend in the business world, being a reference and an example of perseverance for several generations of entrepreneurs. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.